Imagine a scenario where your dog swallows a shiny new penny minted after 1982, or perhaps they sneak a dropped piece of garlic bread off the kitchen floor. To most owners, these seem like two completely different problems, a physical object versus a common food item. However, the biological result is terrifyingly and almost indistinguishably similar. You are looking at a catastrophic systemic destruction of the animal's red blood cells. Today, we need to tear down a dangerous fallacy in pet care, the idea that because something is natural, it is inherently safe. For humans, these are superfoods, but for dogs and cats, they become agents of biochemical sabotage the moment they are ingested. The contrast between how a human metabolic pathway handles these foods versus a canine or feline pathway is staggering and deeply dangerous. Let's start with the biggest offender, the Allium genus. In North America alone, there are nearly 100 native or cultivated species. There is a myth on social media that garlic is a natural flea repellent. However, scientific evidence for this efficacy is exactly zero. This myth stems from incorrect extrapolation. What works for parasites in cattle or chickens does not translate to the canine system. Consider Bella, who thrives on vet-approved food, and Rex, whose owner sprinkles garlic powder on his meals every single morning. When garlic is crushed or chewed, enzymes convert dormant compounds into toxic N-propyl disulfide, allicin, and ajoine. Once in the bloodstream, these oxidants act like corrosive acid, targeting the structural components of the red blood cell's hemoglobin. This damage creates Heinz Bodies, clumps of oxidized hemoglobin that bind to the cell membrane, making it stiff and fragile. The spleen acts as quality control. When it identifies these damaged, rigid cells, it pulls them over and dismantles them. Sometimes the damage is so severe that cells rupture directly in the blood vessels, a process called intravascular hemolysis, leading to oxygen starvation. The animal begins to starve for oxygen even while breathing normally. The remaining hemoglobin is chemically altered and cannot release oxygen to tissues. Agents like allicin and ajoine act as potent muscle relaxants, causing blood vessels to widen and blood pressure to plummet into dangerous shock. Simultaneously, these compounds prevent blood from clotting properly. The animal's oxygen is failing, and they cannot stop internal bleeding. The most insidious part is the timeline. An animal might seem fine for several days, while the hemolysis slowly builds to a crisis. The absolute lowest point of the red blood cell count usually doesn't develop until several days after ingestion, catching owners completely off guard. For dogs, consuming just 0.5% of their total body weight in onions or garlic can trigger significant toxic changes. Cats are exquisitely sensitive. Just 5 grams per kilogram, less than a teaspoon of cooked onion, can cause life-threatening toxicity. Cooking, boiling, or baking does nothing to neutralize these toxins. In fact, powdered and dried forms are extraordinarily concentrated and lethal. When a pet is rushed to the clinic with white gums and dark brown port wine-colored urine, the vet becomes a detective. Since owners may not remember a meal from days ago, the vet draws blood for a smear to find the hidden cause. A specialized stain called new methylene blue is applied, binding specifically to the precipitated hemoglobin within the damaged cells. These Heinz bodies appear as distinct blue structures, the smoking gun proving that oxidative damage from allium plants has occurred. The vet must rule out IMHA, where the immune system attacks itself, creating dense spherocytes rather than Heinz body backpacks. If the diagnosis is allium toxicity, treatment becomes a race against time, as there is no specific antidote for this poison. Vets may induce vomiting and administer activated charcoal to absorb any remaining toxins before they can enter the bloodstream. Crashing animals may need oxygen therapy and a blood transfusion from a universal donor dog to survive the crisis. While focusing on allium, we must also address the avocado anomaly. This plant contains a fungicidal toxin called Persin. In goats or cows, Persin causes sterile mastitis, where mammary tissue dies and milk becomes watery and curdled. Birds are the most sensitive. A single gram of avocado can kill a small bird like a budgerigar within just 48 hours. In many species, the toxin bypasses the mammary glands and targets the heart, causing myocardial necrosis, the physical death of the heart muscle. While dogs are somewhat resistant to Persin, the avocado pit is a fatal hazard, often causing gastrointestinal obstructions that require emergency surgery. The golden rule is simple: do not feed human food, especially anything from the Allium family, to your beloved pets. Tonight, check your pantry. Read the labels on every bag of natural treats or bone broth for hidden garlic or onion powder. If you see these ingredients, throw them away. Even small daily amounts are invisibly stressing your pet's internal systems over time. Protect the animals you love by removing these chemical hazards entirely. Beneath the assumption of health lies deep, hidden biochemical danger. The poisoning timeline for these foods is incredibly deceptive. It lays a trap that catches even the most observant pet owners completely off guard. If you are out hiking, there is a distinct way to identify these plants. Their pungent, familiar onion or garlic odor is the defining characteristic. Crushing the bulb of a wild onion smells like onion, but something similar looking, like death camas, lacks that distinct scent entirely. Emergency rooms see poisonings from culinary staples: common onion, leek, chive, and the most concentrated of them all, garlic. Researcher Louise Buckley conducted a systematic review to ask, does oral garlic actually prevent or reduce flea infestations in dogs? After searching over a century of literature, the number of peer-reviewed studies proving garlic repels fleas on dogs was exactly 0. People assume biological universality. They believe if it kills a bug on a chicken, it must be a natural shield for a dog. Rex's owner sprinkles garlic powder every morning for years. It wasn't one acute dose, but chronic microdosing, slowly destroying his blood cells. Why does a tiny pinch hurt a 50-pound dog when we humans can eat cloves of garlic to lower our blood pressure? Inside hemoglobin, there are structural hinges called beta-93 cysteine residues. These allow the protein to grab and release oxygen. When these hinges are oxidized, the structure of the hemoglobin changes completely. It forms sulfhemoglobin, which clumps together into dense, heavy aggregates. These heavy clumps physically bind to the inside of the red blood cell's membrane, creating permanent and destructive structural damage. The oxidative stress attacks the cell membrane, distorting its shape and making it rigid and fragile. We call these deformed cells eccentrocytes. Now, your fleet of delivery trucks is a disaster. They have rusted frames and brittle wheels, unable to navigate the tiny capillaries. When these damaged trucks try to navigate the narrow capillaries of the spleen, they simply cannot survive the journey. The body is actively destroying its own red blood cells because the garlic has ruined them. This is known as extravascular hemolysis. This internal destruction leads to severe anemia. The animal begins to starve for oxygen even though they appear to be breathing normally. In methemoglobinemia, the remaining hemoglobin is chemically altered so it can no longer release essential oxygen to the tissues. Is a multi-system attack. Agents like allicin and ajoine also function as potent cardiac and smooth muscle relaxants. The anemic nadir usually doesn't develop until several days after ingestion. By then, the cause is often disconnected from the effect. The vet must also rule out other culprits, like pennies minted after 1982, which have a raw zinc core that dissolves in stomach acid. Acetaminophen, or Tylenol, is another common household item that can cause similar oxidative damage to your pet's blood cells. If caught early, the vet will induce vomiting using drugs like ropinirole for dogs or dexmedetomidine for cats. Intravenous fluid therapy is essential to flush the kidneys and prevent damage from the biological shrapnel of ruptured cells. Aggressive supportive care, such as oxygen therapy, helps saturate the remaining blood cells to keep the organs functioning. In critical cases, a blood transfusion from a universal donor dog may be the only way to save a life. While avocados are famous for the toxin Persin, for dogs, the largest danger is often the large, hard seed. In lactating mammals, Persin causes sterile mastitis, where the mammary tissue literally dies, turning milk into a curdled fluid. Check labels on every bag of natural pet treats or bone broth. If you see garlic powder or extract, throw it away. Protect your loved animals by removing these chemical hazards. Prevention is the only way to avoid this invisible biological sabotage. To understand why a tiny pinch hurts a 50-pound dog, we must look at their fundamentally different evolutionary biology and microscopic carnage. The danger starts with mechanical trauma. Chopping, crushing, or chewing triggers an enzymatic reaction. converting dormant compounds into dangerous sulfur-containing mixtures. Once swallowed, these compounds are absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract and go straight into the bloodstream to target red blood cells. The oxidative stress distorts the cell's shape, creating eccentrocytes. These cells are stiff, rigid, and cannot survive the journey through the spleen. Garlic is 3 to 5 times more toxic than onions because its concentration of organosulfur compounds is significantly higher. Birds are remarkably sensitive. A single gram of avocado can kill a budgerigar within a window of only 48 hours. In many species, Persin causes myocardial necrosis, the physical death of the heart muscle, leading to sudden and catastrophic cardiac failure. Owners make a dangerous logical leap, assuming what kills a bug on a chicken is a safe bug shield for their golden retriever. Aggressive intravenous fluid therapy is vital to flush the kidneys and protect them from the shrapnel of ruptured red blood cells. The practice of using garlic for flea control has no basis in empirical evidence. It only gives your pet a known poison. A tiny sprinkle of garlic powder can be more lethal than raw garlic because it's extraordinarily concentrated and easy to ingest. When hemoglobin is filtered into the urine, it turns dark brown, like port wine. This is a critical sign of oxidative damage. As blood pressure plummets into shock, the animal's oxygen delivery fails completely, leaving them in a state of internal crisis. We must ignore social media myths. Scientific literature proves that garlic has no efficacy in repelling fleas on dogs. Read the labels on every bag of treats. If you see garlic extract or onion powder, throw it away immediately. Cats are exquisitely sensitive. Just 5 grams per kilogram, less than a teaspoon of cooked onion, can be fatal. The oxidative stress methodically destroys red blood cells, leading to a catastrophic failure of the entire circulatory system. Choose safety by avoiding human food. Stick to vet-approved diets to ensure your pet stays thriving and full of energy. Protect the animals you love by removing these chemical hazards from their environment entirely. Their life depends on your choices, because beneath the assumption of health lies hidden danger. Stay informed, stay safe, and protect your best friends.